Welcome to Podnutz Computer Repair Podcast, episode 180. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live call-in show for computer repair techs. We answer your questions on running and operating your computer repair business. The call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by Pulse Printing and Promotions. Get help with all your print and promotional needs. Go to pulseprintpromo.com. Use the offer code PODNUTS for a 5% discount on every order. Let me introduce the co-host. We have none other than Chris Carruthers from the Remote Support Tech team. Chris, how you doing?
You know what? I am well rested and I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Awesome, man. Glad to have you back after a couple weeks here.
Yeah.
So, and you look good. And also joining us today, we have none other than Marvin Bee from MB Systems or maninthevan.net. How you doing, Marvin?
I'm doing good, and I make this look good.
You make anything you do look good, my friend.
If you were going to tell me that.
Oh. All right, let's go ahead and let's see. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and start with a tip or story. And Chris, since you've been out for a couple weeks, why don't you kick it off?
Sure. I have actually been working with a lot of different smaller companies lately, ones who haven't gotten into the managed services,
okay,
and want to, and they're trying to figure out how to. Am I lagging?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. And they're trying to figure out how to get those leads. So I've been working with the guys over at Kabuto, and we've been kind of using the Kabuto system, not so much as a monitoring system, because we've been converting people into Enable and getting them on the full MSP packages, but using the Kabuto platform as a lead generation system to get more repairs and to get more MSP stuff in. So I guess my story for the week is that we got probably a quarter of our leads over the last 2 weeks came from Kabuto pop-ups.
Nice. Very cool.
So there's that.
All right, cool. Sounds good. And Mr. Marvin B., what do you got for us?
I would like to do a little promo for the upcoming Unconvention.
Go ahead.
And the reason I'd like to do that is I actually received 2 emails this past week asking about network testers, 2 completely different scenarios, and basically we're looking for some network testing. One was to check a cable that they were getting inconclusive results on and not getting the speed that they wanted, and the tester that they had just wasn't giving them the answer that they needed. And the other one was a person looking to replace a tester that they had had for several years and looking to upgrade it to do something that would certify the cable, actually be able to also tell what port it's connected to on the switch that I've mentioned about, and to actually test for PoE settings.
Okay.
And one of the things that I wanted to say is that I know that a lot of people just simply call me the fluke guy, and I just want everybody to know it's not always about the fluke. That there are other networking tools out there, and there are some that will work great for techs just starting out and don't want to spend a lot of money, can't spend a lot of money, and we're going to be talking about all those different tools at the Unconvention.
Very cool. And who's teaching that?
That would be some Johnny Ponytail guy.
And just for the record, I actually call you the Fluke Master, just so you know.
Oh, well, that's a lot better than what you were calling me earlier.
Oh, man. No, that'll be good. Yeah, definitely. Toronto On Convention, July 22nd through the 24th. Definitely get signed up for that. We want to see you all there. And we're going to have a lot of good labs and a lot of good information going for that. So, and a lot of people want to see the network tools and what they can actually do, so they get a better understanding. And what a perfect place where you can get hands-on with this stuff and see it firsthand. All right, my tip this week is one of the questions that came up, and I believe I brought it up last week, is this whole Windows 7 thing. When you go to do a fresh install of Windows 7, if you don't have all the updates in there, you've got to go and get the updates. And a lot of times what people were finding was Windows 7 would sit overnight after a fresh install just to start getting the updates. And sometimes even then they couldn't actually get the updates. So as I was listening to Security Now last week with Steve Gibson on the Twit Network, basically he was talking about a tool, and it is how to update the Windows Update Agent to the latest version. This will solve that problem. Instead of it spinning and not seeing the updates, you update the tool, which is the update tool for Windows 7, and once you do that, you'll be able to see the updates and actually start installing them right away. And I need to test this out. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I still took forever even using like the WSUS updater. Now, it could be me. I don't do a whole lot of Windows 7. I don't do a whole lot of reinstalls, period. But when I do, it is a humongous pain, especially on the Windows 7 and before. Actually, Windows 7 is probably the worst, and I don't know why. But I will put a link in the show notes for that, and it's a tool from Microsoft where you can download it, update it, and go from there. Another thing is I just started listening to. I'm going to try to listen to a book a month. That's my goal, and I want to. And when I say that, a book that is business oriented or a book that makes me think and become better at everything that I do. So the book I'm going to recommend this month is Outliers: The Story of Success by Malcolm Gladwell. And if you guys have not read that, I just started listening to. I listen to everything on Audible if I can. If I don't, then I actually have to read. But I was listening to it on Audible, and there was a lot of good understanding and good tips in there on what it takes to be an expert in what we do every day. And I'll just tell you the magic number that they had come up with is 10,000 hours. And he goes through a lot of different stories of different people in the past that have gone through things, and they didn't become who they were just because they were naturally talented. Now there are people that are naturally talented to a certain point, but even those people had to put in almost 10,000 hours in what they do to become an expert in that arena. So fascinating so far. I'm really interested. I love storytelling that gives me good information to think about and to try to better myself in my business and everything I do in my life. So definitely check that out. I will have a link in the show notes for that. All right, I think we're going to move on to and play a voicemail. And this voicemail is from Ricky Saul. So here we go.
Hey guys, what's going on? I was on my way to work listening to the most recent computer repair podcast, 178 or 179, I think. Someone had sent an email in looking for a device that would record the temperature, ambient temperature, I assume, of a room, and then send off alerts. I think I know of a device that actually would work, and it's fairly inexpensive. It's GE and Wink make a device called the Spotter. I think it is dependent on another device called the Wink Hub. But anyway, just a little sensor that can record all sorts of data. Ambient room temperature, humidity. I think there's even a thing for moisture, noise, and all that stuff. But the idea behind it is you can set it to kind of monitor any one of these conditions and send alerts to your smartphone. There is a Wink app that it syncs up to, and it pretty much just sends your phone an alert for whatever you set it to. So that may or may not work for this guy's particular situation. Not sure if this is helpful, but yeah. Take care, guys. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Ricky. Appreciate that. Yeah, we were talking about temperature monitoring of a server room last week. We had an email that came in, and I'm going to go ahead and roll into a couple emails because I was surprised at the response that we actually got back. This is from Jorge Hernandez, who actually had asked the question originally. He was the one looking. He says, a quick follow-up on this topic. He goes, I ordered this item, and it works perfectly fine for my needs. It's Temperature Alert USB Standard Edition, temperature sensor USB, and it's $129.99. So I'm going to have a link for that in the show notes. You guys can check that out. And then Marvin, at the end of the show last week, I think we were already off air, but he had come up with AccuRite temperature and humidity monitoring system. There's a free app for iOS and Android phones, tablet, or laptop. And that particular item is $99.99. So right around $100, $130. Those are a couple there that we've come up with so far. And then I got another email from Chris Flush, I think is the last name. It says, "Hi guys, this is in reference to show 179 where you discuss server room temperature monitoring. I use a device called the Alertus Remote Temperature Monitoring System to monitor my client server rooms. Yeah. You can purchase it on Amazon for $199. Here, Alertus Smart Sensor Alerts. I'll have a link for that in the show notes. This device monitors temperature, humidity, light on and off status, door open, door closed, and internet up and down status. It can send alerts via text or email. The device itself is easy to set up. It runs on 2 AA batteries and connects to the client's wireless network. I always put them on a separate guest wireless network with no access to the corporate LAN, which is the best practice for IoT devices or Internet of Things. But that could be considered optional. Once you configure the wireless connection, you simply create an account on the Alertus website and set your alerts and trigger points. There are also Android and iOS apps you can install. The device checks the temperature and humidity on an hourly basis, and if either reach a trigger point, an alert is sent. If you have enabled the light or door alerts, you will receive an alert each time the light or door status changes." Oh, that could be fun. I'd sit there and turn the light on and off just to mess with somebody. If the device is unable to connect to the internet when it should be sending an hourly update, you will receive an alert. There are 2 downsides to this device. The first is the temperature and humidity only update hourly. I'd like to be able to trigger updates more often, both manually and by changing the update schedule. The second downside is there's no logging of temperature or humidity data. It would be nice to be able to gather, store, and graph the data. All in all, though, these devices work pretty well for the price. There are better solutions, but they're significantly more expensive and harder to find. Keep up the great work on the show. I love it. Chris Flush, and owner, Texas IT Pros. Thank you, Chris. And I hope I did not butcher your last name too bad. Definitely appreciate that. Yeah, it sounds like, you would think for a device that's $199, you would think it would give you more than hourly updates. But yeah, other than that, it sounds great. Sounds like definitely something that people could use. And the last one is from our good friend John Dubinsky. He says, "Was listening to one of the latest shows on my drive back from Florida, and someone asked about temperature monitoring in a server room. Here is a solution I use: IT Watchdog's Micro Monitor. They work great and are easy to use and very reliable." I'll go ahead and I will have that link in the show notes for you guys also. You guys can check those out if you're looking for a way to monitor temperature in the server room. Now, obviously, we don't want the temperature to get too hot because we don't want our stuff breaking down, and that is a reason for having that monitoring situation. Let's take a quick break, and we'll go on to our major topic for today, which is going to kind of roll off of the emails and voicemail that we received. Our show today brought to you by Pulse Printing and Promotions. Get help with all your print and promotional needs: business cards, postcards, stickers, mouse pads, fridge and car magnets, shirts, pens, and so much more. You can see some of the most popular items online, and new items are being added to all the time. If you need something that is not listed, just ask. Make sure you use the promo code Podnutz for 5% off every order. It never expires. You can also sign up for their newsletter, receive monthly specials. If you sign up for the newsletter, you will be entered to win 500 business cards. This will be the last week for that, so definitely sign up for that. Darren over at Pulse Printing and Promotions designed and printed my business cards, and I couldn't be happier. They're great. Go to pulseprintpromo.com and use the offer code Podnutz. All right? And our main topic for today. We're just kind of rolling right along. Let me put this out there before we get started. A lot of the things that we bring to the show or think about, or maybe you guys make me think about, is from the emails and voicemails that we do receive from you. So if anybody out there ever wants to have something where we can talk about it in a deep dive situation, where we can basically look at something a little bit deeper than just kind of cutting the surface on what we do on a daily basis, please send a voicemail or an email. You can send an email to podnutz@podnutz.com or use the voicemail number, which is 1-888-697-0162. And if you're around on a Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m., you can definitely call in and pipe in and say what you think, or give us a suggestion about things to talk about. So definitely do that. Keep that going. You guys keep the show alive. I definitely appreciate that. All right. So today's topic, since I got so many responses from the whole temperature monitoring thing, I said, well, it seems to me it would probably be very good to talk about monitoring in general. What do we do? How do we do it? What do we use the different pieces of software or hardware that we use to monitor our clients? How do we do that on a day-to-day basis? How do we check things? How do we make sure that everything is up and running? Because a lot of people will get into monitoring of different sorts, and they will basically not know where to begin. They don't know where to start. They just kind of throw some things out there and go, hey, I'm an MSP, whatever. And, okay, you're not, but whatever. Every time I say that, I throw up in my mouth a little bit. But anyways, so what I want to talk about is what do we use for monitoring? And Chris, I know you do a whole lot of different monitoring, so I'm going to go ahead and let you kick it off and talk about a couple of things that you do, and then we'll give it over to Marvin, and he can add to or take away or whatever to the things that he does and how things work together. So
yeah, we'll let Marvin rip me apart. It'll be good. No, so what we do in general, and this is a very broad overview. I mean, if you guys want anything more specific or more in depth, ask. More than happy to answer those questions. But for our monitoring services, we use the Enable platform. So using the Enable platform, we're doing the antivirus and the unlimited removals and all of that. But what's more important is, I mean, we're getting alerts for possible failing hard drives. We're getting alerts for printer ink being low, which, believe it or not, winds up being amazing when you can just contact your contact your client and say, hey, by the way, you need some new ink for that printer. It makes them feel all warm and fuzzy. And just in general, I mean, we get system health. Now, one of the things that I've taken away from this over the years, though, and this is something that I think is really, really important for people to remember about managed service platforms and RMM tools, is that no matter how good of a tool you have, everything is being reported by Windows. So, if Microsoft doesn't know that there's a problem, your tools aren't going to know that there's a problem. So it's not a foolproof 100% thing. There's going to be things that are going to be missed by any RMM tool, and the important thing is to use it to its full extent that you are able to, and make sure your customers are aware that that this isn't a 100% guaranteed system.
So let me stop you there for a second. So let me ask you about, so if there is something comes up and it says, hey, there's a problem with the hard drive. You're getting some bad sectors or whatever Windows is reporting to the RMM tool of choice, and you're getting it. What are the steps that you take at that point to mitigate the problem?
Give me a problem.
The hard drive's failing.
Oh, sorry, the hard drive's failing. Okay.
I just did, man. I don't know what I don't know what your problem is.
So, I mean, if we're getting an alert that a hard drive is failing, then I mean, our response is to contact the client, or depending on, I mean, if it's a white label client, I'm going to tell them to contact their customer. But contact the client and say, hey, listen, you know what? We've gotten some reports from the RMM that there is possibly a failing hard drive in this computer, and we want to check that. So can we remote in and check that? And remote in, download the crystal disk info, and just double check the findings, right? And if that's coming up the same, if that's what it says, yep, this is still an issue. Okay, you know what? Let's take it back to the shop so that we can use Tech USB to triple check, because I don't trust Windows.
Right.
Yep, Tech USB says that hard drive's failing. Perfect. Here's how much it's going to cost to replace the hard drive. We'll get everything copied over. It's a good thing we caught this early so that this isn't going to be a bigger issue like missing data.
Excellent.
So that's how we would handle a situation like that.
No, very good. Yeah, good, complete information there as far as how you do that, because a lot of people don't. They go, hey, the hard drive's failing, and they don't really know how to express it to the customer to get them, hey, we really need to check this out. This is serious, and especially if that customer doesn't have a backup. And
yeah.
If they don't have a backup, Chris, what do you do?
Well, I mean, if they don't have a backup, then that's a problem in itself that we've spoken about a bunch of times with them already. But whether they have a backup or not, the approach to something like that is always urgency. Right. So, I don't know if you noticed this, but I didn't ask when is a good time for me to remote into your computer. The question I asked is, can I remote into your computer to look at it?
Right.
Not that I don't give them the choice. If they say, no, right now is not a good time, okay, no problem. What time today? I don't really put the expectation down that we can get to this next week. And it's not that the hard drive's likely to fail today, but you want to avoid it. For those people that don't have backup, then this is exactly why you should have backup. I'm really glad that we caught it, but we might not have, because we remind them that our system can't be 100% perfect because computers aren't perfect. Windows is not perfect. So it would have been very possible that we would not have gotten this alert.
Right. Impending doom, and it's gonna happen. And I like your urgency on it to take care of the problem immediately, because our jobs are to protect the customer.
Right.
And really, it's to protect the customer, not really from the hardware or anything. It's protect the customer from themselves. The customers are generally their own worst enemy, and they are some of the worst procrastinators in the world, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%.
There is no sense of urgency unless you give them that sense of urgency. You really need to do that. So.
Yeah, that's right. And what a lot of people who are calling themselves MSP, and I say that because we're never truly MSPs, right? Like I have a managed service plan that doesn't make me an MSP, right. But our job is to make sure that the customer knows when something needs to be done, when we have that information for them. And a lot of the people who want to have an MSP product, that want to sell service plans to their customers, may not understand that when they're first getting started, that this puts a huge responsibility on you to make sure that you're being very proactive with these services, and to make sure that your customer understands exactly what it is that you're offering them. Because you don't want to be in a position where you knew a week ago that drive was going to fail, but you didn't bother contacting them because you didn't check your alerts, or you didn't, you put it off until whenever. But you also don't want to be in a position when you didn't get that alert because Windows didn't report that it was a problem, and the hard drive fails unexpectedly. You don't really want the question of, well, why didn't you warn me about this? And the customer not understand that Windows just didn't report it.
Very good. And what types of things do you set up as far as alerts? I mean, do you have everything email alerted to you, no matter if the computer sneezes, or are there certain things that are more of a priority than others, and the others you just kind of, is there a way that you go in and check your database of customers that are on a particular RMM and just kind of peruse through it? What do you do on a daily basis when it comes to that?
And actually, it's funny that you say that, because it's really hard to explain without showing people. So I might have to just do a webinar sometime.
There you go.
But really, yes, I receive alerts, but I only receive alerts through my email during certain hours when I know that I'm not going to be at the computer to be able to check. Because within Enable, and I'm actually pulling up on my other screen, there's an active issues list. And so that will show me every single issue for every single computer in one list. So I can tell you that there are 39 issues on the 700-ish computers that we have right now. Most of them have absolutely nothing to do with anything except this computer turned off UAC. Well, I keep telling them not to, but I'm not going to. But what we're looking for, and I'll actually pull up the list because it's pretty full. The list that we're looking for. So the AV Defender status, or just the status of antivirus in general, hard drive health, hard drive space, high CPU, high memory, if the system uptime has been going too long, if the warranty on the computer expires, we get an alert for that at the time that the warranty expires to make the suggestion that maybe they should refresh the computer and get a new one. I'm just kind of scrolling down through a lot of this because a lot of it really isn't pertinent to the conversation. But it's pretty massive.
Right.
And when alerts come up, you have to make the decision, okay, is this alert really something that needs to be handled, or is this alert that we don't need to worry about? Like the UAC thing. Like, okay, the customer turned off UAC. I know they turned off UAC because I turned it on.
Right.
So if they want it off, that's fine. I'll let them know, hey, you know what, your UAC's turned off, just wanted you to know. And if they respond back and say, yeah, I don't really want it on, I'll just take it off the monitoring for that system.
Okay.
What you want to make sure of as well is that your customer is getting some sort of a report. Because if you don't report anything to your customer, they have no idea what it is that you're doing for them.
Right. Now,
So
how do you go about that? As far as, do you send them an email report on a monthly basis, weekly basis? What do you do?
depends on the client. So I have clients who renew annually that want an annual report, so we do
Okay.
that for them. I have clients who want monthly reports. I had one client that wanted a daily report. That lasted a week. Um, but a good RMM system is going to have some sort of a reporting tool built into it, and there is reporting built into Enable.
Okay.
So I can send an email out for whatever support address that I need to, which works great for us on the white label side of it. That says, hey, here's your antivirus scan results, and here's everything that we found, and here's the number of threats, and that's the biggest report that we do. We have some clients that want to report for every flag that happens on their computer. That doesn't usually last more than a couple of months, but we'll do that for them as well. As here's every flag that you've gotten in the month, and they have no idea what they're looking at, so they just don't bother. But it solidifies that relationship, and it says, yes, we are actually doing work for you even if you haven't heard from me, because I don't need to call you to reset your print spooler when I can just jump into the services tab and restart the print spooler.
Gotcha.
So there needs to be that communication, so they at least know that you're working for them. So when it's renewal time and they go to sign that contract, the question isn't is it really worth what I'm spending on here, but the question is, why haven't you raised my rates more?
Right. Good. All right, very good. All right, let's move over to Marvin. Marvin, I know you have a lot of different options and a lot of different things you've used over the years for monitoring your customers, but what are some of the things that you do and how do you do it?
Well, we'll start by saying a lot of what Chris is doing, we do as well. For the most part, most businesses are going to monitor a lot of the same things. We're going to be looking for, server and desktop health, making sure the hard drive is healthy, checking event logs with alerts there, AVG, virus alerting, and all that stuff. So we do a lot of the same things. We use different packages. I'm using MacFocus for our platform. I also have a couple of clients that we are using LogMe and Central, which doesn't have a lot of the great reporting tools that most RMM tools do, but it's something where at least there's a dashboard. We can go in and see, which computers are green, yellow, or red, and obviously we've got to address the red ones. So we have that. We also do, now I mentioned probably about a year ago that I used a program called Event Sentry, and I used that on my servers because it was actually doing a lot more of the event log monitoring of servers and a lot more of the SNMP stuff, and actually had some network monitoring components to it where you could send out agents to the desktops across the network. I don't use it as much, but I still use it for my servers. That's really a good tool. That Chris is right. A lot of times the RMM tools that we have aren't going to catch everything. So you, in a lot of cases, want to have some sort of, it doesn't have to be where you're paying for two tools, but maybe you have a basic tool for general stuff and then more specific tools for other stuff. So the Event Sentry, it's by a company called Netikus, Netikus, that I use specifically for servers, and that has been a good tool that I use. And it does a lot of the same things. It will send you an email. The one thing I do differently is a lot of the tools that I use you can have set up where the alerts go to email, and then some of them have it to where you can have it sent to text or SMS. So I respond to my texts a lot faster than I respond to my email, because we all know we get too much email.
You got that right.
So, I may hear my phone tell me I've got email, but I just may not look at it. I may be at a client, I may be home taking a nap, I might be, who knows. But if I get a text, I know that that's important, whether it's my family or my servers. That text is going to be taken care of. So that's the only thing I would suggest, that when you're looking at monitoring tools, if you can set up those different levels. Most alerts are not going to be super critical, but there are some that are. If something's down, you want to get a much harsher alert than if the hard drive might be going bad. So we have that. The other thing that I do now, to Chris's point about how do you address people when there are issues. Now, my situation is probably a little bit different in where most of my customers, I've got relationships with them enough that a lot of times when there are certain alerts, if I've got an alert that a hard drive is going bad, by the time I call them to tell them, I've already ordered a replacement drive. And I'm really just calling them to say, hey, I got this alert, here's, and I may forward them a screenshot, or I may forward them alert so they'll know for sure that, I'm not just jerking with them trying to get extra money.
Right. Okay.
But they're going to know that the problem is already in the process of being fixed. So I do that with most of my customers because they're business clients. They want to make sure that they're not down. So they're paying the extra to know that I'm going to take care of them sometimes even before they know that there's a problem. So the Event Sentry is the one tool I wanted to mention that's different. I also do a monitoring of my routers. And not to get political for anybody that's listening or in the chat, but
here we go.
90% of my customers, we use SonicWall routers. And with the SonicWall routers, I have an appliance that is a GMS, Global Management System. And basically it's the same as the RMM tools. It will monitor my routers so that if one goes down, I get an alert. If somebody makes a configuration change, I get an alert. I've got one customer set up that if they go above a certain level of bandwidth, I get an alert. And that helps me out because I've got customers with multiple offices that replicate data between the offices. And if the bandwidth gets above a certain level, I know that they're going to be choking out their servers, and we're going to have replication issues, we're going to have all these types of things. So I need to know what happens. So if somebody decides to throw up a 4.7 gig DVD onto a server drive that's going to be replicated, I need to know and tell that customer, and the customer says, why are we slow? Why can't I work? Yeah, you got a user that just loaded up their music collection or whatever. So it's
Come on, it doesn't really happen, does it?
Actually, it does. So I do that. I monitor that. Now, I know everybody's going to say that, yeah, we can do certain stuff inside of routers and there's other tools you can have, but the global management system with SonicWall, it's great. It's all one web portal. I can go in there and look at all the routers for all my different customers. I can schedule updates so that if I know I've got a firmware update, I can go in and schedule that firmware to install, reboot the router at midnight when my customers aren't supposedly aren't on and working. But I know that I myself don't have to physically go on site, install the firmware, and reboot the router. So those are probably the two things that I mentioned differently that I monitor for my customers.
So you're using a couple different tools that you have to check into. And now, can you explain SNMP? What is that as far as monitoring?
Simple Network Monitoring Protocol. Okay. Basically, SNMP is built into, I don't know the percentage, and I don't know if it's every single device, but your desktops, your servers, your printers, a lot of those stuff have SNMP built in where they will report or respond to requests for reports on their status conditions, printer levels, for printers. For most of us, I would say most people, when they look at SNMP, they're really going to look at it for stuff like uptime, and they'll be able to, have some very basic network monitoring in there. There are some tools out there that are really dig deep into SNMP. I don't. So I'll be honest, I don't. I'm not one of those people that are going to be digging really, really deep into stuff. But I do use it because you can do a lot more active reporting with the tools as opposed to just, hey, it's not just a simple ping to see if something's alive in that regard. Okay.
Very cool. Good. And now, Chris, now you use the network monitoring protocol, right?
Yeah. So there's within Enable, there's the probe scanner. and the probe will scan the network to the thing that I mentioned about some of the printers. They'll inform us through the Naval dashboard when they need new ink and things like that. That all goes through the same protocol. We don't use it to the same extent that Marvin does, but it is something that's used. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, I knew that I knew some people use it in different ways, and some are a little deeper than others. And again, it all depends on what your particular customer needs. But
Yeah.
I like a couple of things that definitely, Marvin, that you're doing, with the sonic walls and different things, and the event century with the server, because that's a good piece of information. A lot of times we try to get one tool that does it all, and I've yet to see one. I don't know if maybe you guys out there have seen some, but reality
No, depending on what you do for your customers, I doubt seriously that anybody will find one tool to do everything. Because first of all, it's going to cost a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, Event Century is a cost that is, probably more than some of the RMM tools that, people use. So, you have to kind of gauge where you're at, where your customer's at, and what they're willing to pay. So, just like, for instance, the sonic wall. I had basically moved my customers, up from Linksys, Netgear, whatever the lower grade routers were, to sonic wall. But my customers aren't also the people that are going to be willing to spend something for, Cisco. They're just not going to be there. So, if you're looking at a sonic wall or a WatchGuard, those levels are kind of in there. Fortinet has a router that's probably a tad bit more expensive than the sonic walls. But I did that so that we talked last week about brand loyalty.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm loyal to Sonic Wall, but at the time that I got with them, and it's probably been about 15 years now, I needed something where I could unify my customers so that I could support, one item and not have to be trying to, figure out the difference between 3 and 4 different sets of routers. I've got customers with multiple sites, so I'm having the same router for each site. And that's really what it is. So, it's more about finding the tools that work best for you. And at the time SonicWall did that, it had that global management, because at the time, I had customers that are like, why is our internet so slow? Why can't we replicate data across our VPN? I had no way to tell them until I got the management system. I mean, I went through the free traffic monitoring tools. I went through, the CAPSA tool and the Colasoft tool and, the PRTG. Now they have free versions, they have paid versions. And I tried the free, a couple of them I tried the paid, the PRTG, but they were good. I'm not saying, that they're not good tools, but for me to manage, let's say this customer at the time had 6 locations. I needed something that I could see all 6 locations. And so the SonicWall management tool allowed me to look at each router at each office, and I could tell the traffic between this router and this router is where the bandwidth throttle is bottlenecked. So I could tell them that. I could go in and I could tell them, yeah, this person, this station is downloading this stuff right this minute, or 5 minutes ago, or whatever. So, that's not something you're going to get in your typical RMM tool. Now, some RMM tools do have traffic monitoring, and they'll have it set up where you can look at each station and tell if the traffic for that station is, is high or not. Some of them won't tell you what they're doing; they'll just tell you the traffic's high.
Right. Kind of give you that basics.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of monitoring tools out there that they start off and they're very simplified systems, and they work. And then because us as their customers want more things added, we say, hey, we need this, we need that, we need this other thing over here. And a lot of times because of that, they put all this stuff in. And from what I've seen in the past, it seems to me that the more a company puts in, the worse off the product gets over time. So what ends up happening for a lot of people that still love the products today, whatever product it is, they love the product because they're only using 50% of it anyways. The other 50% they're like, I don't care about. So they've simplified their own process so it works for them. And I just want people to remember that again, I don't know, it would be great to have one tool that rules them all, but I don't think we have them.
No, and you don't want to give all of your, put all your bags in one company's basket, right?
Right. Of course, I mean, as far as in your guys' opinion, as far as RMM tools, there's a lot of things where people will say you need to stick with one thing and stick with that over time because it's not very easy to move from one product to another. As far as any type of monitoring, is there something that you guys would go, you know what, I'm going to monitor this and I have to use this tool, or is there always room where you can take it and look at different products and say, I'm going to switch over, even though it's going to cost me a little bit of extra time over the next month or 2 months to switch everybody over? Are those things worth it? And Chris, I'll let you ask that or answer that because I know you went through that once or twice.
Yeah, I mean, we went from Max Focus to Enable, and I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it was a bit of a transition, but we found ways to move everybody over through scripts, and we figured all of that out. I have to say that if you're going to look at switching from one system to another, you need to look at the amount of effort that you're going to put into it and what you're going to get out of it, and you really need to decide, is it worth the amount of work that I'm about to put into this? I can say for me that it was absolutely worth it. I could have had triple the number of computers that were in there. It would have been absolutely worth it. But that doesn't mean that somebody like Marvin is going to want to switch to a new system, because he's very happy with what he's got, and that's fantastic. So yeah, what are you going to get out of it?
Right. And again, when it comes down to feature set, you might see something over here, or something that's going to work for your customer base better, and you've got to figure that out. So, very cool. So what other types? So we've talked about remote monitoring. We've talked about.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Going back to your should you switch or not?
Yeah.
Because I've had a lot of technicians in other forums talk about making the switch for whatever reason. And I can tell you this, if you're looking to make a switch simply because of cost, you better think twice.
Yep.
Because I've had people that have made the switch because they're thinking that they can get it for cheaper and make more money off their customers. What you've got to look at is what are you giving your customers in return? Because I've had some people, and I'm not going to say one way or the other. I have LogMeIn Central and I have Max Focus, and I've looked at other RMM tools, and to be honest, I've been tempted to switch, and I've actually started to switch one time, and then I had to stop because at the time, the other product, it was cheaper, but it wasn't giving me more than what I was doing at the time, and in fact, it was giving me a little bit less, and I didn't want to give that up.
Yep.
Right.
So I didn't. Other people have made the jump, and you've got to look at what you're doing. For instance, I know that Chris at Enable, there's feature sets in Enable that work for his business that wouldn't work for mine.
Yeah.
And so you can't look at it just side by side, feature by features. What is it that works for you? And between Enable, Max Focus, Continuum, Kaseya, LabTech, I mean, there are a ton of RMM tools out there, and a lot of them will integrate into contact management stuff, APIs. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. I probably won't be switching for a while because Max Focus does 90% of what I need.
Mm-hmm.
And I can fill the other 10% with my Sonic Wall, the GMS. I can fill it with the Event Sentry. I can fill a lot of it with my Fluke. When I got to do network monitoring, I can take my Fluke One Touch, leave it at a customer site, and monitor a network and not even have to be there. So you've got to look at what are the features that you're giving to your customers, and what return are you going to get. So I just wanted to throw that out there because
No, that's good.
I know that a lot of guys have made switches in the last year, and some turned out great, and others turned out horribly, and they just, you know, didn't take the time to think through why they're switching.
Yeah. And I got to give it to you too that don't switch for price ideas is absolutely true. I mean, we tell our customers that, right? As computer techs, yeah, I understand that guy's only going to charge you $40 an hour, but what are you getting for it?
Right.
So we got to make sure that we're not doing the same thing they are. I'd also honestly prefer to see some of these companies set up more integration than adding more stuff into their own system. Like, you're right, one tool is never going to be able to do everything, but that doesn't mean that these tools can't integrate in other tools that do the same thing. I know for a long time, with Max Focus, I wished that there was a easier way to do Ninite through Max Focus because it didn't handle the third-party patching very well. So I mean, that was a feature that could have been fairly easily added by them. And it would have made the platform a lot better without a whole lot of code needed.
Right.
You know what's funny about the Nanite? Because I use that, and I have looked at trying to integrate that into not just Max Focus, but other tools integrated as well. And there's a lot of scripting that can be done. But what's funny is the way that I use it, I can't find a scripting tool that works. And it's I've got a couple of customers where, again, I've got the multi-office setups. In each office, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not a big scripter guy. I just don't want to spend the time creating a script for this office, a script for this office, a script for that office. It's a lot easier for me to just pull up Ninite, update the products that need updating, install the products that need installing, and I've got it to where I can, export the report to tell me how many updates were, installed. And right now it's working for me. But yes, if there's a tool out there that will integrate Ninite, that would probably, I would pay for that specifically. It's just there's no way around it. I pay for the Ninite Pro.
Yeah.
I pay to use that, and I mean it works great, and I can get those updates done in probably 15 minutes per client. Where I'm updating 40, 50 stations at a time. But yeah, if I could automate it and get the report that I need and again, I'm probably not giving it enough justice because of the way I do it and the way, there are some products that I update, there are some products I don't update. I've got a customer where I can't update TeamViewer ever.
Yep. Or Java. Some customers you can't update
right.
Java.
You can't. I mean, so there's not a way to automate that in those scripts. So that's one reason I don't do it.
So for you, we should probably talk about this later. wget. So basically, what I wound up doing to solve that problem, because I had the same problem, is I had my general Ninite Pro installer, and I uploaded it onto the site as an executable, and used wget in a batch script to download the file, run it, and delete it. That way, it's always going to be pulling the newest one out there. If I had somebody who needed a specific configuration, I would get a completely separate installer for them, load it up there, and then just change the batch script for that client to download this file instead of that file. And just run it as a silent program. So there are ways around that with scripting, but it takes a bit of setup. You have to get wget installed on everybody's systems. And I know that there's built-in Windows ways of doing that through bits, but I mean, let's face it, it doesn't work well. So there's no good way to do it.
Well, and the other thing too is I think a lot of people forget that. Let's be honest, okay? The reason a lot of us repair computers is because we're awful coders. And so when you're writing a script, or even if you're copying somebody else's script, a lot of times these companies that are using the monitoring tools via software, they've integrated a lot of things in there that they can get to work on a consistent, regular basis. Anytime we introduce something outside of that via a script or whatever, we always sit back and complain because something breaks, something's not working the way we thought it was supposed to, and so it's never as smooth a process as we think. Sometimes it works great, and then other times you're sitting there fighting it, and you end up going back and doing a lot of that stuff manually.
But that's what you test.
Yeah, but I've seen just if you take things like Windows updates that change things in the system, I've seen scripts that might work for 4 months, and then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, break. Oh, what happened? I don't know. because again,
well, yeah,
you're
but that's because
dependent on the
Microsoft
Windows
does it.
system. Yeah. Unfortunately, so as we're updating all these things, this is just what I've seen from internally here is that there's a lot of things that don't work well together, or maybe they start off working well together and then they don't down the road.
Yeah.
So but my point is, you need to build time in to be able to fix those problems and not just be bleeding money all the time. So in my opinion, I look at things and I try to keep it as simple as possible. Let me just do the basics that I need done. And if you can use things like a remote monitoring system for your customers, you can use things like a sonic wall router device that you can do your firewalls and all that kind of stuff. On the network side, there's all kinds, or Event Sentry with the servers. Those are good. Now, obviously, they're separated, and you've got to check more portals than just one. But it's, to me, a lot of times when you keep the stuff simple, it works time and time again. Usually, not always, but usually.
And let's always remember too that the LifeLock commercial.
I know where you're going with this.
Why monitor something if you don't fix it?
True. Oh, LifeLock. Are they still around?
Yeah, that commercial's out there now. I'm telling you that.
I don't watch commercials. Are you kidding me? Watch commercials.
Awesome. Sometimes I skip the show to watch the commercials.
Oh my. All right. Is there any other things that we haven't talked about as far as monitoring? Oh, I know one thing we haven't talked about. How about monitoring backups?
Well, okay.
Who does
so
that?
That's a whole conversation because that depends on what you're using to back up.
Go for it. What do you do, man?
All right. So there's proper managed. No, come on. This is a thing. Don't do that, Martin.
I'm not. Sorry. Go ahead.
Martin. All right. We're gonna edit that in post, right?
Right. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
So there's proper managed backups, right? And so we use Infrascale's SOS online backup.
Okay.
Full disclosure, by the way, we're distributors and we're resellers, so this is a product that we're selling, so that this might sound one-sided, but it really isn't. If you get a system like this, that doesn't necessarily have to be them, but a proper managed backup where you can log into an online website and see, yes, this backup went, no, this backup did not go, how many files were backed up, browse the backup from there, okay? Now, this is all assuming that you're using a cloud-based backup system. That in itself is its own contained management system that works very well on its own. Then you have non-managed backup systems, either because they are local backup or because it's a cloud-based backup that just flat out doesn't have any kind of monitoring to it, like what's the one that you like?
Carbonite?
Carbonite, yeah.
Actually, they do, but okay, go ahead.
Well, yeah, but not to the same degree, though.
I would have to look at them, but I mean,
Okay.
It's changed a lot over the last 5 years, and it checked my backups for my customers the way I need it to be checked. So I know whether the backup.
Can you go in and browse the backup, though?
No, but I mean, I only do that periodically for the customer. I mean, I can remote into the customer's machine and look at the backup.
Sure. Yeah. So so what I'm more concerned with is ongoing monitoring, right? So it wouldn't quite work the same way, but even without that, Carbonite can be verified to be running by an RMM tool, such as Enable or MaxFocus,
Right.
because you can make sure that the service is running.
Right.
But you wouldn't necessarily be able to know that the backup was successful or that the files were
Right.
being backed up successfully because of that disconnect. Now, there's also built-in backup monitoring systems with some of the RMM tools. I know with Enable, you can integrate a lot of backups into Enable and tell it where to back up, and it'll report back whether or not the backup had any errors. But you'll never get the same level of detail on a backup for something that isn't built to be monitored.
Okay. So what do you do? I mean, as far as the as far as the backups are concerned, what do you do on? Because the way I look at it, so again, it's another web portal I have to log into. I can log into Carbonite for
Sure.
myself, and I can look at it. Okay, now I don't just sell basically the cloud backup. I sell the cloud backup with the local, where they have a external hard drive plugged in their machine.
Sure.
And it will tell me whether both were backed up successfully or not.
Okay, so that's fantastic. So you should charge for that service.
Right.
Right. Like this is the thing, right?
Which I do. It's all part of my service. But yes.
But I mean, this is the point. Yeah, it's another thing to log into, but it's something that I only need to log into once a day.
Right.
Right. So like it's just part of my daily check. Right. It's like I have a checklist now. The checklist is in my head now because I keep changing things on it. And
oh boy, here we go.
But that was on the actual physical checklist, and the physical checklist is like log into the Infrascale dashboard and check for any backup errors.
Right.
Log into Enable and check for any issues there. Check email. Right. So I have a daily check and that's in it, and it doesn't take that much time. But you need to make sure that you are billing your clients for that service. If somebody's buying Carbonite at however many dollars it is for the year, that's fantastic, but I'm not going to monitor that for them. Now, if somebody wants me to monitor their backup, $96 a year for 10 gigs is what I sell the SOS space for.
Okay.
And I will monitor that. And if there is an issue, I will contact them. And I will either fix it for them or find out that they're on vacation. I have a client that has been on my report every single day for 2 months because they're on vacation, so their computer's off. And every day I get an alert that their backup doesn't work. Right? But I know that, so I ignore them. And so that's what that comes down to. And it comes back to what we were saying before, that you are actively telling these people that you're monitoring it. These backup programs will email your client when the backup is done. I know SOS does, Carbonite does too. So they're getting constant feedback that these backups are working as well. So all you're really doing there is you're charging them a little bit more to help them monitor this, but you're putting yourself more and more into their field, right? They know that you're there. They're constantly calling you because you're calling them. You're contacting them about their backup and their monitoring. So you got to really pick how much do you want to do. I want to make sure that the backup is working, and I want to see that the backup is working by browsing the files. But a client that is going to only buy Carbonite and that's all they're going to do, no problem. I'll just put the Carbonite service on alert, and if the Carbonite service stops, it'll alert me.
Right. And granted, even with the Carbonite service, and again, I don't sell the lower tier. Like I said, the cloud backup, I sell the middle tier, and that's all that includes the monitoring and all that. But there's a lot of things that these pieces of software will let the customer know also, and it'll tell them. And what does the customer do? They'll send me an email and say, "Hey, it says this, and it says something's not working. Now I've got to go in and take a look at it." But you said exactly what I wanted you to say, Chris. So you fell right into my hands perfectly. No, I wanted you to talk about the daily tasks of what you do, and you just nailed it. You've got to go into these systems. They're not just going to alert you via email or text message necessarily. You need to go in on a daily basis and look at what's going on in these systems. And you kind of scroll down the list and go, hey, are there any alerts? No, we're good. If there are, you deal with them.
Yeah.
And you move on to the next one. You log into the next portal. You do all your checks there. You log into the next portal. However many portals you have, the alerting is for weird things that happen, but you still need that daily looking at what's happening with the customer in order to best protect them. And there's a lot of people that will just put the software on there and just run with it.
Yeah.
Hey, it'll let me know if something's broke.
Yeah, you can't do that.
I'm an MSP, whatever.
You can't do that. You cannot assume that your tools are going to do what you want them to do. And I mean, okay, really good example with Enable. If a service goes stale, and by that I mean that we have not received any alerts from this computer, but we haven't received any confirmations either. That is a stale service.
Right.
I'm not going to get an alert for a stale service because as far as the system is concerned, there's nothing wrong.
Right.
But if I go a week and I haven't gotten anything from that computer, they're either turning their computer off after they've used it for 15 minutes, they're gone, the internet's been disconnected, or there's something wrong.
Right.
So yeah, you can't just rely on alerts. You have to actually go in and look and see, is there something going on here that I haven't been alerted for? And even if that's just a once a day check, you're doing your customers a huge service for that. And quite frankly, that's what they're paying you for. So if you're not checking that every day, I'm not going to call that stealing, but I can't think of another word for it right now, because you're not providing them anything extra than what just installing, some self-monitoring software with a pop-up like Kabuto would do for them.
Right. Exactly. All right, Marvin. What is your what is your monitoring process when it comes to backups? Especially, obviously, you've got servers out there, and I don't know, are you backing up any workstations, or is pretty much everything on the server level that's important to be backed up?
I try to shove off as much responsibility of backups as possible.
I love it.
No, I've actually no, I'm in the process of moving my core business clients to the Datto product, which is basically the combination all-in-one local backup, cloud backup, that gives me basically what's called backup verification reports on a daily basis. So for the servers, basically what it's doing the backup, is pushing the backup to the cloud, and because I'm doing an image of the servers, it's actually sending me an email with a picture of a login screen that tells me that the backup is completed enough, and if I had to boot from that virtual machine, I could.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what I'm doing for my business customers at the server level. Not all of them, because that's not cheap, and not all of them are willing to pay for that.
Right.
So then I do drop back to other products like Mosey.
Okay.
And I am using the backup product in the Max Focus. I am doing a couple of workstations there and a couple of servers there, but all of them will give me, I still ask for email reports every night. So I've got a list of all my machines that I'm doing a backup on, and basically at some point I've got to go through those emails, and did I get a backup report for this one? Check. Did it pass? Did I get a backup report for this one? It passed. Check. And if it doesn't, then I've actually got to go in and fix it. One of the reasons I like the Datto is that, yes, I can get a dashboard where I can see all of them at the same time. I can see which ones are active. I can see which ones are syncing the data. Because if I've got a customer that's dumped a bunch of stuff on there and I need to see that it's active, I can see that. I like that product. There's a lot others like it. Carbonite's moving to something similar to that. I don't know how far away they are. I don't know what the cost is. And some others are out there. But I'm moving my customers away from, I used to do a lot with SyncBack, where it would back up servers to a local NAS drive.
SyncBack Pro, right? Not free?
SyncBack Pro.
Just clarifying for those cheapies out there. Yeah. Did I say that out loud?
Is that the official term now?
I don't
Cheapy? Cheapo?
Sure.
There's also Netgear Vault that I've used a lot with the Netgear NAS appliance, where I could back up a server to the Netgear, and then Netgear would go to the cloud.
Okay.
But, they're not as... they all do the same thing. You can get an email report. You can log into a portal. You can see the files. But one of the reasons I'm moving to Datto is because of that verification report, because it's actually saving it in a virtual machine format.
Right.
And a service that Datto does. Now, this is not for the weak or faint of heart, but Datto will help you simulate a downed network. So that if you get, you can set up a deal with them to where, let's test the backup, and we're talking real-world test. Let's shut down the server, see if we can get that back up and going, and see if we can get that customer up and going in an hour or whatever it is. Because the high-end Datto products you can use as a backup server until your main server can get repaired or replaced, if that's what you need. Now, again, this isn't going to be for everybody. For somebody that has a customer without a server or just a few workstations, that ain't going to be for you.
Right.
there is a low-end data product that will at least back you up and get you to the cloud, but it's not going to do that virtual server stuff. The Mats Focus stuff, I actually haven't looked at their virtual product, but for basic file backup, a lot of them are going to be fine. But yes, you've got to monitor them.
Right.
And why monitor them if you can't fix them? So you've got to be able to get into a portal. You've got to browse the files. You've got to do a restore every so often to make sure. Just because you can get the file doesn't mean it's a good file.
Right. And we've talked about this in the past, where my concern is always when we talk about backup products and we talk about this corrupt data that may or may not be on a system, because I've had it happen with MP3 files for me. I've moved from one system to another, and these are local backups. They weren't cloud backups at the time. But if I have a corrupted file, well, I guess some of them were. If I have a corrupted file for whatever reason, moving from one system to another, when I went to move it over, that file might no longer be any good. And you're never going to know that until you actually have to restore that. So do you guys have a process that you go through that you check certain, let's say, databases? Hey, is my QuickBooks database whole and consistent? Is it going to work? Can I test this in a version of QuickBooks that's going to be able to see it and recognize it as the database file that it needs to be able to start up? You do things like that?
I will speak to that because I've run into a couple of situations where the reason I went to Datto is because it will do it for me. Now I still have to actually test a real live server down scenario, but I've had customers where they've had products that were being backed up. I had a law firm with a client management system, didn't want us to manage the backup. All they wanted, just show me that it's working.
Right.
I'll get the email and but that customer for who knows how many months was backing up a database that they could not use. And so one of the things that I have been doing with some of my customers is finding a way to check the data. QuickBooks is easy. I mean, even if the customer doesn't want to do it themselves, it's very easy for us to get the version of QuickBooks that they have, install it in our local system, bring over their backup file, restore it, see if it works. That we can do. That I'm not worried about. But for the customers that have these large SQL databases, these client management systems, got to find a way to get them to do that. Somebody's got to do it. I'll be honest, it's not easy. It's not cheap. Most customers don't want to do it, especially if that means that they have to go down to do it.
Right.
And it's not something where my case management systems, it's not something where I can, I can't install it here in my office and run it.
Okay.
That's the problem we run into.
Gotcha. Okay. Chris?
I do test them. Now, not nearly as often as Marvin probably does because I don't have automated ways of testing that. But I think it's important. I think it's important to do a restore every once in a while just to make sure that the files work. Yeah, so I would completely agree with him. I've never run into a situation where the restored file didn't work, so I don't have a story like his.
Gotcha. And I know just from even like Quick and Personal, as far as that program goes, I know it makes 3 backup files that are fairly close in date and time of each other. The way it does it when you're on a shutdown and all that kind of stuff. So the chances of actually losing all 3 files is probably less than, it's not going to be a realistic scenario. So
Yeah.
you're probably going to be able to grab one of the 3 within a 12 to 15 hour time period, and yeah, they might have to put some more data in, worst case scenario, but a lot of times it's fine. So.
Remember though, the issue that I've had with QuickBooks is, QuickBooks will work with a corrupted file, and I'm sure Chris, you're probably much more knowledgeable about QuickBooks than I am, but I've had situations where the QuickBooks backup was fine with regard to what it backed up, but if you had a specific issue inside of QuickBooks that they said, okay, go back to a previous backup and let's see if it's, you could have backups going back a year, and that particular feature was broke.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
for a year. So I think that's the more the trouble with our backups. Backing up Word files and PDFs and all of that stuff. I mean, unless you're getting, CryptoWall or Locky, those are pretty much going to be okay. But it's the databases that 95% of the database will work, but there's one feature that's not working and you won't know it. That's what I'm talking about, where we've got to, I know corporations have probably done this, and I don't think we have anybody with a Fortune 500 company to call in and tell us. But it's how do we test those types of things? Because we're not in the customer's QuickBooks data every day. We're not in their case management database every day. I have a customer where, because of the way they're set up with 5 offices and replication, they lose documents a lot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, sometimes I can find them on one server and they just didn't make it over to another server, and I can find them and retrieve them. Sometimes they got deleted. I can bring, and sometimes they're just gone. And the customer's always like, well, what happens? I don't know.
What did you touch?
Stop hitting that delete key. But those are the types of automated backup restoration tests. It's something we need to do. It's something we'll have to find a way, to provide for them. And, listen, like I said, if there's somebody out there that's working with big companies and is doing this, please call in, email, whatever. Let us know, because, we're all running into this. It doesn't matter the size of the business. It's the importance of the data.
Yep.
Right. In whatever you do, I think it'll help everyone to know that you need to come up with some sort of schedule, whatever it is. If you schedule to check databases or file structure once a month, once every week, whatever you're charging your customer for, make sure that you're charging the customer accordingly for doing that work. And just let them know, hey, this is just to protect you to the best of our ability. It's not going to be bulletproof. It's not going to be 100%, but it's going to be better than not doing it on a consistent basis and just waiting for something to break down. Do you guys agree?
Oh, absolutely. The problem, the only real problem, that comes into that, the big stuff, or like what Marvin was saying, when you have a specific QuickBooks function, and you're right, I've come across this a lot. There's no real way to deal with that because you don't know that function's broken until it's broke. So, right. There's a lot of really big holes in this, and I don't know how to fill that.
Right. Well, that'll be, I'd love to hear from somebody that has a solution for what they do, and you can be as generic as you want, just to kind of go, hey, here's some of the things we do at our company, or here's some of the things I do as a computer repair tech or as an owner of a business, and how do I make sure that my customers are protected to the best that they can be. Because I think, again, we can't just throw software up there and let it run and hope for the best. And basically, we wait. Here's what normally happens. Everybody waits until something breaks down. So essentially, that's why we're all still break fix. But whatever. You call yourself whatever you want. That's on you. I'm just saying, if something breaks, we fix it. Anyways, I'm sure I'll get some emails over that. I think we've had a lot of good information, and I'm glad you guys really went down deep into how you do things and what you do for your particular types of business. There's been a lot of golden nuggets on here and a lot of good stuff that people can take away and actually start to think about and start to create for themselves as they're growing their business, whether they're just starting out or they've been doing it for many years and they don't have a process in place, which we are all guilty of at some point. Anyways, Marvin, if people want to find out more about you or send you an email or, toggle your chain, how could they do that?
Toggle, Mike. Come on now. Take me to dinner first. mbsystems.net, maninthevan.net, and I've got a Man in the Van surprise coming shortly.
Ooh, I can't wait. It better not include music. That's all I can say. All right. And Mr. Chris, where can people find out more about what you're up to and what you do?
So we provide white label IT services for computer companies. You can learn more about us at www.rstechteam.com. You can give us a call at 866-568-2813. or you can send us an email at info@rstechteam.com.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the great information. I want to give a quick mark your calendar reminder. No show next week in recognition of Mother's Day. Either spend time with your mother if they are still here with you. If not, spend time with your wife, who probably is a mother, and make sure to make that day special. But yeah, we're going to take a break just for 1 week, and then we'll come back the week after that. Come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/Computer Repair Podcast Live. Join in on the conversation by calling in live or hanging out in the chat room. We have audio available over at podnutz.com, or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast. Send your questions and feedback to podnutz@podnutz.com. Or you can leave a voicemail at 1-888-697-0162. And I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters again. Appreciate what you guys are doing out there. Give a special shout out to Obi Tom Kenobi, which is an awesome name. Thank you, Obi Tom Kenobi, for being our newest patron. You guys can support this show by going to patreon.com/Computer Repair Podcast. And I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on Podnutz, the Computer Repair Podcast. All right. And there we go. We got our dancing minions.
We do. Whoa, minions.
Hey, come
Minions. Yeah.
If anything, that's turned around a little bit.
Well, as far as, Paco always tells me, he says, he calls me the Godfather, so I don't know what that means, but and he also, sometimes when he's sending me a note or asking a question, he says WWJD, which everybody knows normally stands for What Would Jesus Do? But in this particular case, it stands for What Would Jeff Do? That's usually how he starts it out. Oh. Hope that didn't offend anybody. I'm just saying. It's funny the way he just communicates with me sometimes. So
I am offended.
I don't care.
Mostly by your beard.
My beard?
Yeah.
What beard?
How dare you, sir?
What beard? What are you talking about?
It's all right. You'll find it.
My beard? This is just not shaving one day. I don't know what you're talking about.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh man, I was thinking like 5 o'clock shadow.
No, it was a whole day.
Oh.
It was a whole 24 hours.
Okay. Good to know.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to, since we've got this mindless banner going on, I think we're going to shut the official cast down. Appreciate everybody coming out this week, and we will see you not next Sunday, but the Sunday after that. Have a great couple weeks.
Peace.